When I started this arc, I was really excited about the adventure that it would take me on. Many people that I know claim that the Crossbell arc is probably the best the series has to offer, and it is the peak of this series. Not that the rest of the franchise is bad, but all of the aspects of the game really shines. The cast, the plot, and the combat all really shine in this duology. So, with all this hype, I was definitely expecting a lot out of these two games, and they did not disappoint. Hello everyone, my name is Fejiro and this is cozyfeji, and on this channel we cover a variety of things such as video essays, reviews, JRPGs, and all things cozy gaming. So in 2023 I decided to start my journey playing the whole entire Trails or Kaseki series, starting from the very beginning in Trails in the Sky first chapter and working my way up to the most recent release, which will be in this time of filming. Trails Through Daybreak will be coming out in a couple months. But yeah, I wanted to work my way through this series. A lot of JRPG fans absolutely adore this series. I would like to kin the Trails series as to the One Piece of JRPGs, meaning there's a lot of games in it. There's about 10 as of right now, but 11 in the summer with Trails Through Daybreak. But either way, there's a lot of games into it. There's a lot of different arcs, and a lot of people don't know where to go into the entry. Like, there's a lot of barrier entry as to where to start, where is a good place to start, and whatnot. But either way, back in 2023, I decided to start my journey with the Kaseki series, and I am so glad that I did. I originally started off with a Let's Play, decided to take that series off my channel and play it on my own time, and then I decided to do a review at the end of each arc. So I did a review of the Trails in the Sky arc, and now I've completed the Crossbell arc this year, and I wanted to share with you guys my thoughts. So if you guys are not aware, the Crossbell duology was never officially released for the US for a really, really long time. So since we never had those duology, a lot of fans took upon themselves to create their own fan translations. And then the notorious Geofront themselves decided to take it upon themselves to make the translation for the game. So they made a patch for it where you can download or buy the Japanese version and incorporate the English translation patch. And that was how the only really viable way to play it for us Western English speaking fans. But it wasn't until 2021 when NIS America decided to work alongside with Geofront to create the official translation of the Crossbell games. So in 2022 we got Trails from Zero, and in 2023 we got Trails to Azure. And so today I wanted to share with you guys my experience with those two games. With these reviews, I'm only going to focus on the narrative and the plot aspect. When it comes to combat, it's pretty much your run-of-the-mill turn-based RPG, especially with the Crossbell duology. The combat is pretty much the same as the Sky trilogy. There are a few added features in the Crossbell duology that doesn't really do too much in terms of combat, but it just add a little here and there, but nothing too much to warrant a whole full fleshed out discussion about. So we're just going to focus on the narrative and plot. Also, I want to make it known that there will be spoilers in this review. So if you have not played the Crossbell games, I highly recommend that you maybe watch this game later. If you are a brave one and just want to watch it, cool. Definitely save this video for later when you do finish the two games, because I will go into some detail about a lot of the happenings in these two games. After finishing these two games, I feel like this series have fully solidified that these games are definitely the book text definition of a slow burn. When you play a Trails game, you're definitely playing it for the long run. A lot of the stuff that happens in these games won't be paid off until later on, and so on. So we're definitely in the halfway point for me, I think. I'm assuming in terms of how many games are out right now, I'm in the halfway point. I've played a total of 5, and things are just starting to gain traction. So without further ado, let's get into how I feel about the first one, Trails from Zero. Trails from Zero follows Lloyd Bannings, a rookie detective in the Crossbell Police Department's Special Support Section, SSS, alongside his colleagues including the spirited Ellie McDowell, the brash Randy Orlando, and the genius hacker Tio Plato. Lloyd investigates various crimes and mysteries in the bustling city-state of Crossbell. As they delve deeper into their cases, the SSS uncovers a tangled web of political intrigue, corruption, and conspiracy involving powerful factions such as the Crossbell government, the Amborian Empire, and the Republic of Calvard. They also confront the enigmatic organization Ouroboros, whose machinations threaten to plunge Crossbell into chaos. Throughout their journey, Lloyd and his allies forge strong bonds with each other and with other key figures in Crossbell, including the charismatic Mayor Dieter Cross and the skilled bracer Arios McLean. Together, they strive to protect their home from internal and external threats while uncovering the truth behind the mysterious Crossbell incident. What I really love about Trails from Zero is that it heavily reminded me of Trails in the Sky first chapter, in the sense that they are both really good introductory games. When you play Trails from Zero, you're definitely getting introduced to a new city, a new cast of characters, and just overall new motives and beliefs, and again, what's the new journey that we're going on to. So we're slowly but surely getting used to the cast of characters that we're getting alongside to, such as Lloyd, Tio, Ellie, and Randy, getting to know them and why they're part of the SSS. Also, getting to know their relationship with one another, because they're all new to each other. So we're getting to grow alongside them, get to understand each other's weaknesses and strengths, and how that could overall impact our strength as a group as a whole. Some really interesting key highlights about this game is that when you first form the SSS, the whole city and the Crossbellians are kind of apprehensive about this whole new formation of this group, because a lot of the city and a lot of the citizens don't really trust the police or this new group. They feel like they've been burned by the police department and that they don't really do their job in protecting the citizens. They're more focused on protecting the higher-ups and the government officials rather than the heart and soul and the people of the city itself. So a lot of the times they put a lot of their trust in the Bracer Guild, which I find very interesting because the SSS is pretty much formed as a counterpart, or I guess a competitor to the Bracer Guild, where a lot of the citizens put a lot of trust in them because, like we mentioned before in previous entries, the Bracer Guild is more of a neutral party that gets to kind of read in between the lines and get to go about solving issues in a more unorthodox way than compared to a government institution like the SSS. Which I find really interesting because throughout the story, you find the SSS kind of butting heads with the Bracer Guild. And speaking of the Bracer Guild, what I really loved about this game is that we had some callbacks and reappearances, some really well-beloved characters such as Estelle and Joshua, and Ren as well. It was really, really exciting to see Joshua and Estelle come back into the game. When I first saw them for the first time, I was just like, oh my god, my favorite characters. It's like seeing my friends all over again. To see how they incorporate themselves into the story and to see how the relationship grow with the SSS members is really, really interesting. Because again, at the very beginning of the game, they're more of competitors and rivals, but as we go throughout the story, they become to grow a really beautiful relationship and work relationship as well. What's also key to know within Trails from Zero and just with the whole Crossbell duology is that there are a lot of tensions between the city and the neighboring nations. What's really interesting about Crossbell is that even though they have their own government, a lot of their government is still ruled over by their neighboring nations of the Erebonian Empire and the Calvard Republic. Those two nations are literally right at the borders of this autonomous state, and they pretty much have a lot of their hands on a lot of what's happening in the government. A lot of big decisions, bills, and a lot of things are controlled by these two powering nations. And what makes it really interesting is a lot of laws and things that happen to people who are from our outside or even within Crossbell kind of slapped on the wrist whenever they get caught into trouble or caught against the law. They kind of just got a slap on the wrist, which for the SSS fans really frustrating because whenever they solve a case or finally get to the bottom of things, they can't really have a proper resolution because the laws allow them to just kind of do whatever they want. And so it's kind of really, you sense that frustration with the SSS because they truly do want to fight for a sense of justice, but that justice isn't solved because these two countries are too caught up with the power struggles and the power dynamics between them. And not only that, there's a lot of corruption within Crossbell, which is a huge theme that is noticed in both of the games. As they work and grow as a group, they also unravel a lot of corruption and honestly shady stuff happening within Crossbell, and that includes the mafia group in this game called Ravache. The Ravache are a mafia group that are pretty much all hands on all aspects of Crossbell, whether they just kind of were a very intimidating threat to the whole city, or they are pretty much really buddy with government officials on both sides, with the Calvard Republic and the Arambonian Empire, which is really interesting to see how that all plays out and how the SSS tries to go about talking and engaging with the Ravache. And like I mentioned before, the SS is pretty much a new founded group, and within this new founded group, they have to build the trust with the citizens of Crossbell, which is really interesting. A lot of people are just like, yeah, you're just another group that's probably not going to last that long. We have the Bracer Guild so that we can go and help solve our problems. So during the whole game, you're pretty much working your way to help gain the trust of the people. And that's the part of the world building aspect when you're going on these quests to help solve not just Crossbell City, but also neighboring little cities around Crossbell, to listen to their struggles and their problems and help solve those problems. You're building that trust and also learning about the world and whatnot, and which I think is really fun way to incorporate world building and really getting to know the people and the world around you. We're in a new city, a new game, new cast of characters. We're going to have a new kind of antagonist, and that is the DG cult. And we all know cults are nasty, bad, and disgusting and do horrific things, and this cult does all of that, all the works. What's really interesting is how, in the certain aspect in the game, the Ravache group has this really lucrative, secretive party that they hold every year with government officials, really high-ranking people, rich people all come together to be a part of this. And so they host an auction at this party, and one of the, I guess, gifts or prizes within the auction was supposed to be a doll, but in this case ends up being Kia. And Kia is a sweet little girl that we obviously rescued during this auction, because what the hell are they doing with a child? And Kia seems like a very sweet, very innocent child, but we come to find out that she plays a really huge role in the whole scheme of both games. But in this game, in Trails from Zero, she is a very interesting figure, or important figure for the DG cult that we tend to obviously fight in this game. What's really interesting about the DG cult is that they have a huge history, not with just Crossbell, but with the whole continent of Zemuria. They have done atrocious things throughout the continent, even with our party member Tio, who's gone through some horrific things in our past. And I think talking back on our cast characters, what I really love about the Trails game is that we really flesh out our characters in the background. Tio, who is a really notoriously great hacker, but also has a really tragic backstory and how she has the powers that she has. We also have Ellie, who comes from a very prestigious and high-ranking family, but she also has her own goals and beliefs and why she is the way that she is and why she strives to be part of the SSS. We also have Lloyd and why he's come back after living outside of Crossbell, coming back to Crossbell to learn more about his brother and what happened to his brother and the death of his brother. And then we also have Randy, who comes off as a very kind of suave ladies man womanizer guy, but also has some not so nice things in his past as well. So what I really love about this game is that we get to really, and not just with this game, but with the Trail series, that they really flesh out and get to really love these characters. I kind of went on a tangent there. But yeah, the DG cult is our antagonist in this game, which is really interesting. But yeah, we end up rescuing Kia and dealing with the DG cult and towards the end. So I feel like with Trails from Zero is a really interesting one, because you spend most of the time just really doing a lot of world building, getting to know the characters, solving a lot of cases here and there, and fleshing out more of the story. One aspect or one specific quest that I remember really loving was the quest about getting to know more of Ren's backstory. And if you don't guys remember, Ren is an enforcer of the secret society of Ouroboros, and we got to know a little bit more of her backstory in the Trails in the Sky arc, and how she has grown to really love and have a really great relationship with Estelle and Joshua. And at the end of, I believe, Trails in the Sky the Third, they kind of realize that they truly do love each other and want to be in each other as a family. But Ren is still dealing with a lot of inner demons that she has to deal with, and we get to really see what she's really dealing with in her side quest in Trails from Zero. In this side quest in particular, we get to find out more about her family, because in The Sky the Third especially, we get to know more about her in the Star Door 15. And if y'all know, that door, ooh, is an emotional roller coaster. I definitely cried a lot, and I definitely cried a lot during this quest. During this quest, we pretty much have to find this boy that's kind of been lost. He kind of went off around all of Crossbell, and his family's trying to look for him, only to find out that this little boy happens to be spoiler. Oh, by the way, this is a spoiler. This little boy ends up being Ren's little brother, She doesn't realize this until later on, when the SSS find more about the reason why they're saving this boy, and it's looking for her parents. Looking for this boy. The parents are looking for this boy, or Ren's parents, hence why the little boy is her brother. And so when we come to the end and we finally find the boy, they bring him back to the SSS office, and Ren's there to like help play with him and save him. And of course, the SSS notify the parents that they found him, and they're coming to go pick up the boy. But Ren, for some reason, doesn't want to meet her parents again. So she hides herself in the closet. And as the SSS are telling their parents about the story of how they found her and the girl that happened to find her, they kind of pick up that, wait a minute, I think that's our daughter. And the whole realization is just truly, so heart-wrenching. And, it's just heart-wrenching. And then when they leave and she realizes, and on the SSS are super upset. And also during this whole time when they're looking for this child, Estelle and Joshua are also trying to look for her, because essentially the reason why Estelle and Joshua are in this game is to help bring back Ren and bring her to welcome them into her family. And so when Estelle and Joshua also find out this story, they also just truly feel emotionally just drained and just sad to hear that this girl has gone through so much, and just to hear that her family is just right there is a lot. And it even just pushes them even more to really bring her home, because this child like her at her age, because I'm pretty sure she's like 12 or 13 in this game, should not be a part of this world. And so they're doing all that they can to rescue her, which I think is beautiful. And yeah, by the end of this game, we really do unravel that the DG cult is doing atrocious things, and the reason to help revive, I guess, their cult and their powers, they need Kia, because Kia, for some reason, is this ancient being that has all this all-knowing power that they need to help revitalize Crossbell and the continent to its true form. And so we pretty much spend our time defeating and fighting off that cult, and also saving Kia to allow her to have a normal childhood. And yeah, that's pretty much kind of the basis of Trails from Zero. When I was playing through Zero, I was honestly surprised that Ouroboros really wasn't anywhere to be found in this game, because they were a pretty huge antagonist in the Trails in the Sky arc. So for them to not make an appearance was really interesting. It just goes to show that they're really, really working in the shadows. And when they do make an appearance, you're just like, ooh, shit's about to go down. And I'm really excited to see how this plays out into the next game in Trails to Azure. Trails to Azure continues the story of Lloyd and the SSS as they face the aftermath of the Crossbell incident of the DG cult and the escalating tensions between Crossbell's neighboring nations. As Crossbell struggles to maintain its independence amidst increasing pressure from Erebonia and Calvard, Lloyd and his allies find themselves embroiled in a new wave of conspiracies and conflict. With the help of returning characters like the enigmatic Null Seeker and the suave gang leader Wazi Hemisphere joining their team. As Crossbell strives to maintain its independence, the SSS find themselves embroiled in a new series of challenges and mysteries. They encounter the powerful enforcers of the secret society Ouroboros, who are manipulating events behind the scenes, and must contend with the ambitious and powerful figures vying for control of the city. As they delve deeper into the secrets of Crossbell, the SSS confront their own pasts and the consequences of their actions, all while facing formidable adversaries and uncovering the true extent of Ouroboros' influence. Ultimately, they must decide where their loyalties lie and what sacrifices they're willing to make to protect their city and its people. Now, when I was playing Trails to Azure, was a very interesting one, because I honestly think that this game had a very, very slow start. It was really, really slow, because a lot of it's interesting because it picks up where you left off in the last game, trying to deal with the remnants of the DG cult and just really squashing out every last bit of that cult so we can completely eradicate it. But even once that's completely done, you're kind of just going back to the new routine of taking on quests, solving more issues around town. Also, we have new party team members with Noel. Why do I call him Noel? Noel and Wazi. But besides that, you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over and again. It isn't until like, honestly, 20 hours in until the story gets really good. But when it does get good, it gets good. So some highlights that I remember from playing, some highlights that I want to mention from Azure is we get a whole new leader. Because at the end of the game, a lot of shit happens in Crossbell, so there has to be a lot of rework from the ground up because a lot of the Crossbellian citizens really truly got to see how involved the Republic and the Empire are heavily involved into the government, as well as how the Ravache really infiltrated and seeped their roots into every aspect of the government as well. So once the Ravache was completely eradicated, and we really got to see how much involvement both the two neighbor nations are, Crossbell needed some rework. So they decided to get a whole new mayor with Dieter Cross, who used to be the president of the IBC, which is like the big bank in Crossbell. He becomes the new leader, and with him being a new leader, there's a lot of government reform that needs to be done. So we're dealing with that. And even though the Ravache group has been eradicated from Crossbell and are put on behind bars, a new group in town is deciding to make their claim known and territory known, and that is with the Red Constellation group. Now, what's really interesting about the Red Constellation group is that they have a pretty significant relation with one of our party members, with Randy Orlando. He is actually the nephew and cousin to the main leaders of this group, and so it's really interesting to see their dynamic and the relationship between those two, and also get to know more of Randy's backstory, because he plays a pretty big role in this game compared to Zero, which I find really, really interesting. And since the Crossbell is pretty much reworking itself from the ground up, there's a lot of tensions between Crossbell, Erebonia, and the Calvard, because both Calvard and Erebonia don't think that Crossbell is capable enough to stand on its own. So they're trying to kind of get their mitts more into they really want to just really get more deep involved in the Crossbell. Erebonia believes that they should take over and absorb Crossbell for itself, as well as the same thing with Calvard. They also want to absorb Crossbell for themselves as well. So of course the Crossbellian citizens and the government themselves don't want that to happen, because they truly do believe that despite all the adversities put up against them, they do think that they could still lead on their own. And so they were trying to just deal with a lot of that. So tensions are rising. And so it's really interesting. We see a lot of just like the Erebonian Empire, the Calvard Republic, just wreaking havoc to the Crossbell to kind of just showcase that, yeah, you guys are still not capable of dealing with your own, so we need to take it in our matters into our own hands, which I find very, very interesting. And while this is all happening and all this like tensions are rising between the nations, the Ouroboros Society are secretly doing their own work in the shadows, which I find really interesting. Ouroboros definitely make their presence a lot more well known in this game. In particular, they were just kind of literally not mentioned at all. They're like, you can hear them by name in Zero, but they weren't really made much of appearances to the very, very end of Zero, but they're on full display on full stage in Azure, which I find really interesting. We get to know more about the enforcers of Campanella, as well as Arianrod and the Professor Nevadis, which is very interesting. Getting to know a little bit of why they're enforcers, not really a lot, but just a little bit. Just also just introducing them to get to know of how powerful Ouroboros truly is. And so they are technically our main antagonists in this time around. And what's really interesting is what a key highlights for me is the amount of plot twists in Azure. Crazy. So like I mentioned before, our antagonist in this game is, we thought it was Ouroboros, which they still are, but Ouroboros has some little besties that they're working with. Not only they're working with the Red Constellation group, they also have some ties with both the neighboring nations as well, but they're also working with our new leaders, the Cross family. That was something I did not expect. Did not expect. So when the whole when the cloth was revealed that the Cross family was working with Ouroboros and that they were truly the instigators of all the craziness and the mess and the havoc that was and the devastation that was happening in Crossbell threw me for a loop. And so we're finding out why the reason why that they're doing the things that they're doing and that they've been working on this plan to take over Crossbell for honestly years, because apparently the Cross family has this huge lineage and importance of this I think I remember they're known alchemists who have this power of knowing about the true septarian power and knowing about that and how they truly wanted to slowly but surely take over Crossbell was wild. Not only that, I forgot to mention Arios, which is a very known renowned bracer in this world, ends up siding with them, which is crazy to hear. And not on top of that, they end up taking our sweet little baby Kia, because we all know that Kia is a pretty interesting celestial being that does have power that truly wasn't really unlocked or tapped in and really didn't really know much of until Azure. And so the Cross family ends up taking her and taking her powers and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They not I guess kind of manipulated, but just like coerced her into taking part into their plan to help save Crossbell. And so we were following SSF trying to take her back. And what's just really crazy to see that we really get to see Kia and what she's truly capable of in this game, because she was just kind of this mysterious little girl that clearly we knew that something was up, but we didn't know the true amount of power that this little girl had until this game. And it was just really just truly sad, because she's just a child. She's literally a child. I'm pretty sure she's like at least like 10 in this game. So to see her just thinking that, yes, this is what I need to do to help save my friends and the family that I've made is truly just heartbreaking to see. But just when we thought that the plot twists were not enough, the true spearhead of this was Mr. Grimwood. You had me fooled when I found out that. I truly was shocked. If you guys don't remember, Mr. Greenwood in this game was kind of like our go-to guy for all the information. He was a lawyer in town that pretty much knew all the ins and outs of Crossbell and all the ins and outs of all of the continent as well. So we always would go to him whenever we're stuck on a case or needed help or need that nudge to the right direction that we needed to go. So to know that he was one of the main perpetrators in this and our main antagonist was wild to me. Not only that, Lloyd is one of the leader of the SSS, and the reason why he came back to Crossbell was to find out what happened to his older brother, Guy. He makes references to him, and a lot of our party members do know of him. He's pretty much really well renowned in Crossbell and his impact and the work that he's done for the city. He had tragically lost his life in battle, but we never really knew how he lost his life, and it wasn't until Azure when we found out that he died because he found out what was really happening, what was really going down in Crossbell, and wanted to come to a stop to it. But Mr. Grinwood was like, not today, and ended up taking his life, which was so tragic. But yeah, that was another huge plot twist that I wasn't expecting. When we unraveled that case was just pretty upsetting. And not only that, last, I think the biggest plot twist in this game was finding out that we were in like a parallel or an alternate universe. So what's really interesting about Kia, she has the ability to change space and time. And what's really interesting, if we go back to Zero, the very, very beginning, the very first cutscene is we find our party kind of like running to find this big battle that was essentially the ending of Zero. And in that cutscene, we follow Lloyd, Ellie, Tio, and Randy. It's just those four of them going in to get ready for the big battle. And then that cuts into the beginning of the game in Zero. And then when you play Zero and get to the end of Zero, we're fighting what was our just main party of SSS, but we have Estelle, Joshua, and Ren. But again, if you remember, Ren, Joshua, and Estelle weren't in that cutscene at the very beginning of the game. And the reason why that is because, again, we're in an alternate timeline. In that timeline, the very beginning of Zero, when they get to the final boss and to try to defeat them, the leader of the DG cult, they did not make it, and they all ended up being wiped. But once Kia was awoken from her slumber, she saw this and was completely distraught and decided to rewind space and time and come back in a timeline where the SS group do encounter and become really good friends with Joshua and Estelle and Ren. That way they could defeat the DG cult. So this wasn't realized, or we didn't get to this revelation until Azure. And so the whole reason why they abducted Kia is because they wanted Kia to use her power of space and time to make a different timeline. And so it's just, when I found that out, I was just like truly just like, what? It was so crazy to me. And it just made me realize that we really are slowly really unraveling the truth about what's happening in this world that we really don't know. Because I feel like in Trails in the Sky first chapter, we really truly got to understand the power of the Ariel and the hidden powers of what's happening in the continents of Maria. And then with Azure and Zero, we truly got to realize the importance of like the Septarian and just like the space and mirage and time, because you know, the if there are elements that we control in our orbiments are space, mirage, wind, and stuff like that. So I'm really curious as to see how those other elements come into play in the story. But either way, I was gobsmacked at the end, and the ending truly got me in got me in my feels for sure. Overall, I absolutely loved my time with these two, and I can understand the hype behind Azure and Zero, and I can understand why people love these and consider these the peak and their favorite of the franchise. I'm honestly really excited to see where the story goes from here. What's really interesting, like in the previous entry, within this game, they were already planting seeds as to what's going to happen in the next arc, which will be in Erebonia with the Cold Steel arc. So I'm really excited to see what happens there, because what's really interesting about this game, and especially in Azure, there's already events happening in Erebonia within the same time what's happening in Crossbell. So I'm really interested to see how those events play out in those games. Again, with this game, it's really just solidified that I truly love this series and I am in it for the long haul. If I were to rank the games that I played so far, it would be in this order from number 1 to my favorite to my least favorite. But my least favorite is still good nonetheless. I enjoy every single game. I give them top tier remarks. But if I were to rank them, it would definitely be Trails in the Sky the Third. It's still my number 1. Number 2 would be Trails to Azure. Number 3 would be Trails in the Sky second chapter. 4 would be Trails from Zero, and 5 would be Trails in the Sky first chapter. As of right now, those are most likely will be changing in order once I play through the Cold Steel arc and get my way through the series. But either way, I'm really, really excited to see where this game goes, and I truly am so glad that I took the opportunity to play this game and start this franchise and series. And I highly, 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 highly recommend that you try this series too, because it truly is one of the best narratives I've ever experienced in a JRPG franchise ever. So if you're a JRPG lover like me, I highly, highly recommend you take the time to play this game. Either way, if you guys enjoyed this video, do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below, which is your favorite of the two? Do you prefer Zero or do you prefer Azure? Again, thank you so much for watching and have a great one. Bye.